In New Zealand, we are lucky to be able to take a lot of the basics in life for granted: water supply, wastewater, stormwater systems. Outside our homes, we rely on our transport systems to connect us to our schools, work and leisure activities. A lot of work goes on behind the scenes to ensure that these services are delivered. The physical networks that provide us with the basic services are called core infrastructure. Our core infrastructure is on or under the ground and has limited flexibility when the ground shakes. Needless to say, Christchurch's core infrastructure sustained widespread damage in the 2010 and 11 earthquakes.
The underground infrastructure we're repairing is a little bit like veins and arteries, so you don't really pay much attention to them. But if something goes wrong, you really know about it. So these are the things that keep our city pumping, and we need to repair them so that our city recovers.
Many of the services that we are repairing are 4 metres down below ground and aren't seen by many people, but certainly are noticed when they're not operating, as has been the case for many months for Christchurch. We're talking about wastewater, sewer, water, retaining walls, the roading, curb and channel, and bridges and the like.
We had an event in September which we thought was earth-shattering and broke up our city. In retrospect, that was a practice for February. About 85% of the city was affected. So SCIRT came about very shortly after February, but built on what we had in place in September.
Very early on we got together with the city and with Sarah and said, you know, have you thought about this alliancing approach that we've tried elsewhere but not at this scale? We think it can work. And the point being is that it actually gets all the contractors and the three agencies, the government and the city, all working together, and we just get out there and start doing stuff.
We have 3 representative clients. Sarah, very well known to Christchurch people. The New Zealand Transport Agency, which has responsibility for roading, and Christchurch City Council. Then we have 5 delivery agents who are quite committed to this rebuild. It's a true and trusted model, and it's working well. I mean, we've got the best brains working for the best solutions for the people of Christchurch.
This is one of New Zealand's largest projects in terms of scale, size and complexity and ongoing scope change. This needed all parties to come to work together to work collaboratively to be able to meet the timeframes that are required. That's quite unique. Normally the 5 contractors would not work together.
Here we brought together 180 designers and other people beyond that, from a total of about 18 different organisations here. And what's been really great is the sharing that's gone on. We've been able to extract the best ideas from all these different people and all these different companies, and they've been very willing to share. We're very free about innovation here. We encourage innovation. Ultimately, you know, when SCIRT finishes, there's going to be a huge legacy of the standards in terms of designs and specifications that we put together here that we can take forward and use in Christchurch and beyond.
At this point, we're still doing assessments to understand the extent of the damage. We've done a huge amount of condition assessments, we call them, huge amount of work finding out what's going on.
Of course, straight after the earthquakes, and I say both earthquakes, work started on just getting services reconnected and getting some minimum quality of life back into Christchurch, and we're ready to launch our forward program for the rebuild of those assets.
We want to do the whole thing together, do it once, do it right, get all the pipes and the roads done once.
The infrastructure that we'll be leaving at the end of the day will be robust, resilient. It'll be able to cope with future events. And that will leave a legacy really from SCIRT, because we'll leave information and standards on how to design infrastructure that will be of benefit to the rest of New Zealand going forward.
It's a massive project, and we all know, you know, if we think about our own household budgets, we've got limited funds, and we have to make good decisions about how we use that money in our own day-to-day decisions with our households. And it's actually no different when you think about a whole city and its infrastructure as well. The first step is that the engineers take a view on what is the most cost-effective from an engineering viewpoint. But if we left it solely to an engineering viewpoint, we might run the risk of forgetting about people and forgetting about businesses. So what we do is we have a series of layers, or constraints we call them. So we start with what is most effective from an engineering viewpoint, what's most cost effective, and then we consider things like medical facilities, where they are, emergency schools, transportation and hospitals, so that if a hospital should take a higher priority than, say, an engineering priority, then we take that into account as well. So then we take in social dynamics as well. So we're going to be repairing from the east towards the west. That's where the infrastructure damage is most critical, where the damage has been the greatest. And that's also where people's lives are very heavily affected as well. And then on top of that, we think about businesses and what's best for businesses. We think about the port and the airport and transport links, and we put all this into a prioritisation machine, if you like, and we pour them in the top, and the right sort of order comes down the bottom, but then we sanity check that to see whether that's the right thing to do, and that then sets the work program going forward. Prioritising this unprecedented work program is challenging, and there is a robust process in place. About a third of the city's wastewater network sustained damage, and around half of the roading network and 15% of the water supply networks were damaged as well. As a result of extensive damage to land and buildings, more than 7,000 properties have been zoned red across the city. Work will continue in the eastern parts of Christchurch for a further 12 months, through to the middle of 2013. The focus of the work program will then move westwards during the latter part of 2013. Work in the Port Hills will progress throughout the 4-year period, with the very specialised repairs required to roading and retaining walls in these areas focusing on the most severe damage first. Work in the central city will be planned to complement the recovery of the economic heart of the city, and will in general occur in years 1 and 2 of the SCIRT work program. The program will then finish in the western part of the city, which in general sustain less damage than the eastern part of the city.
While you've got to plan for the future and have the right plan, you've also got to just get on and do stuff. So what we're doing is sort of what I call adaptive management. So we're started, we're out there doing reinstating, but as we learn more through investigation and as the planning stuff comes through, we basically can adjust the priorities as we do.
The people of Christchurch really are at the heart of the whole rebuild for us, because we're doing it for them. And we need to make sure that we keep communicating, and we do that through lots of different means. The rebuild is requiring us to work very close to people's houses. It's taking the sewage and water straight out of your house, down on the footpath and the roads you're working. We're currently in 80 sites across the city. We're building up to be about 150 sites by the end of this year. We're going to have 1,500 people working across the rebuild and potentially building up. So we are impacting the community, and we really are mindful that the community is who we're here to serve, and we need to do the work. It has to be fixed to enable the city to have a really resilient and strong foundation on which the rebuild can then progress.
Openness and honesty about the work that we are doing is critical. People need to understand that we're going to be out there for an extended period of time. A lot of the time, the nature of what we do will be very, very high impact. And while we do what we can to minimise that impact, it's not always a pleasant experience for people. So we want to make sure that they understand exactly what is going on and the necessity of the work.
Many of the people who work for the contractors are Cantabrians and have lived through the events of the last 2 years. And they are now part of the rebuild and very excited to be part of that rebuild, because they understand and realise what they are doing for the people of Canterbury, but also their families, returning services and bringing a bit of normality back to the people of Canterbury.
We see that the infrastructure that we're rebuilding, all of those things that are underground and people don't see, are really going to provide a strong, resilient foundation for the growth of the city. There will be confidence in businesses to come and set up and work here. There will be confidence for people to go and work back in the city centre. People will move back to Christchurch because they know that this city will be the most resilient city in New Zealand. Its infrastructure has been rebuilt and replaced, and there's no better foundation than that for the future.
Look, we've got a huge task ahead of us, but to do this, we've got the very best people we can involved. We all work as a team. We've got city engineers, we've got NZTA staff, we've got New Zealand government staff helping us. We've got a myriad of consultants, and our target is to work as a team and deliver this in 5 years.